Leo Castillo stood on the wrought iron balcony as dusk painted the suburban skyline in bruised purples and gold. Behind him, through the sliding glass doors, the Castillo penthouse gleamed. Opulent drapes, marble floors, and framed accolades from Eduardo's empire. Tonight, however, all of that shimmer meant nothing. Tonight, he would ask for his inheritance of the heart. "Father," Leo began, voice steady despite the tremor in his chest. He turned. Eduardo Castillo loomed in his tailored charcoal suit, crisp cufflinks, steel gray hair combed back, mouth a firm line. The older man's shoulders were squared, silhouette rigid in the last light. "You wanted to see me?" Leo asked, stepping fully into the balcony's glow. Eduardo's gaze drifted upward, past the towers. "Yes." His tone was clipped, neutral. The single word carried the weight of a verdict. Leo swallowed. Isla and I." He paused as the evening breeze stirred the cuff of his silk shirt. "I love her." Silence. The wind rustled across the city below. Leo pressed on, heart thrumming. "And I want to spend my life with her. So tonight." He reached into his jacket pocket, producing a small black box. The flash of metal as he opened it caught the last rays of sunlight. A simple diamond ring, set on a slender band. Eduardo's eyes narrowed. Leo's throat tightened. "I'm going to propose," he finished, voice barely above a whisper. The patriarch stepped forward, backlit by the interior lights now blooming behind him. He regarded the ring as if it were evidence, as if each facet reflected some unforgivable betrayal. "You're proposing to her?" he asked, but the question wasn't one he expected answered. "Tonight," Leo repeated. "I want your blessing." Eduardo didn't flinch. He turned his back to the city and to Leo. "Why would I bless this?" His voice was cool, an icicle sliding over marble. He shook his head slowly. "Isla Moreno is not welcome in this family." Leo felt his chest tighten. "She's honest. She's brave. She is scandal." Eduardo cut in, voice rising. "Her family has whispers of bankruptcy, of impropriety. I built this name, this legacy, with blood and sweat. You will not tarnish it." His hands curled into fists at his sides. Leo stared at his father, this titan reduced to fury. He had rehearsed every possible response, every compromise, every concession. Now none seemed enough. "I love her," Leo said again, softer this time. The breeze carried the words into the night. Eduardo's shoulders sagged for the first time, an almost imperceptible shift. Then he faced his son fully, eyes cold, then prepared to lose everything. Leo's breath caught. The ring held in his hand felt suddenly heavy, a promise of heartbreak. He closed the box, the click echoing between them. Without another word, he tucked it into his pocket and stepped off the balcony. Behind him, Eduardo watched the city lights blink on, one by one, a constellation of houses where fortunes rose and fell. But in that silence, father and son stood divided, and the night felt endless. The Castillo dining room was a cathedral of privilege. High ceilings, crystal chandeliers, and a table laid for 6. Tonight's guests, board members of Castillo Industries, sat arrayed like judges. Eduardo presided at the head, Leo to his right. Across, Isla Moreno, clad in a simple sapphire dress, appeared pale under the candle's glow. Leo's heart pounded as he poured wine for Isla. Hand steady. She caught his eye and offered a weak smile. She'd agreed to this dinner, her first introduction to the Castillo inner circle, only because Leo had insisted. "Thank you," she whispered, "for doing this." He squeezed her hand. "They'll see who you really are." Eduardo tapped his fork against his plate, drawing silence. "Leo," he began, voice syrupy, "tell our guests why you've invited them tonight." Leo inhaled. "I wanted everyone here to meet Isla, because I asked her to marry me." He gestured to Isla, and she said yes. A hush fell. Plates of salmon and asparagus sat untouched. Isla's breath caught. Eduardo's expression hardened. "This is an outrage," Eduardo declared, standing abruptly. Chair legs scraped the marble floor. Wine sloshed. "No son of mine would love a girl like that." Gasps echoed around the table. Guests shifted uncomfortably. Isla's face drained of color. Leo rose to face his father. What do you mean? Like that? Eduardo strode toward them, flinty eyes blazing. Her lineage is tainted. Rumors of embezzlement, of defrauded partners. Rumors, Leo interjected, voice cold. She's never been charged with anything. Eduardo laughed, brittle. Rumors are seeds, and I've seen the roots. He pointed an accusing finger at Isla. You will not dirty this name. Isla's hand flew to her chest. Aye, sir. My family had struggles, yes. We lost everything when my father's company collapsed. But I rebuilt my life from nothing. Eduardo sneered. Charity case. Gold digger. Isla's eyes filled with tears. Leo stepped between them, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. That's enough. Eduardo's gaze flickered to Leo. Your silence speaks volumes. You side with her. Leo's jaw clenched. I side with love. Eduardo's mouth twisted. Love? Naive. Dangerous. You will pay for this folly. He stalked from the room, leaving the guests murmuring and Isla trembling. Leo returned to sit beside her, brushing a stray tear from her cheek. I'm sorry, he murmured. She shook her head. Thank you for standing up for me. But as the door clicked shut, Leo realized the cost of that stand was just beginning. Isla stepped onto the driveway of her modest townhouse, trembling. The echo of Eduardo's words, no son of mine would love a girl like that, had trailed her here. Leo's promise of protection felt brittle now. She unlocked the front door with shaking hands. Inside, the lights were dim. Familiar photographs lined the walls. Isla with her late mother. Isla graduating top of her class. Isla with Leo at a summer concert. Joy trapped in frames. Isla. Leo's voice drifted from the kitchen. She crossed the tile floor, each step heavy. He stood at the counter, sipping coffee in the early hours, dark circles beneath his eyes. His engagement ring glinted on the counter beside him. Her ring. He turned, relief flooding his features. You came home. She managed a small smile. I had to. He approached, enveloping her in a hug. She exhaled, grief and anger mingling. He hates me. Leo pulled back. Did you hear? She closed her eyes. Every word. He cupped her face. I'm sorry. She shook her head. It's not your fault. Pain edged her tone. But what am I supposed to do? I'm not welcome. He swallowed. I'll figure it out. She stepped back, scanning the room. On the coffee table sat a framed invitation. Castillo Industries annual ball. Isla's eyes fell on the invitation's embossed crest, then to her ring. She plucked the card from the table and hurled it against the window. It shattered with a crack that reverberated through the room. Leo gasped. He rushed forward. Isla. She backed away from the broken glass, tears leaking down her cheeks. I can't face them again. He knelt to gather the fragments. You don't have to. Her shoulders trembled. But you still want me there. He crushed the ring box in his hand. I want you in my life, not their approval. Isla watched him discard the ring into the shards. But your family. He rose, wiping blood from a nicked finger. The blood glistened crimson. I'm done choosing between you and my father. She inhaled sharply. That means. He nodded. I choose you. In that fractured moment, glass glittering like stars at their feet, Isla realized the bond they shared was stronger than any crest or legacy. But as Leo helped her sweep up the pieces, both knew the road ahead would be littered with more fragments of old worlds. Word spread through the boardrooms and social circles of the Castillo Empire like wildfire. Within 24 hours, headlines branded Isla Moreno scandal's newest victim or fortune hunter. Rumors blossomed. Her mother arrested for fraud. Her father drowned in debt. Leo found Isla that evening in the corner of a neighborhood cafe, nursing tea as she scrolled through her phone. His heart clenched at her hollow eyes. They've really gone this far? Isla set down the cup. Someone opened a GoFundMe pretending to be my mother, begging for money to avoid jail. It raised thousands before we shut it down. She ran a hand through her hair. They used fabricated documents. Leo slid into the seat opposite. I'm so sorry. She shook her head. They want me out of the picture. If they can sully my name, they can force me away. He folded his hands. I'll clear things up. She met his gaze, bitterness and love warring in her expression. You can't erase a viral smear. He took her hand. I'll silence them. At Castillo Industries headquarters, Eduardo sat behind the long mahogany table, steepling his fingers. His board members flanked him, some uneasy, others complicit. We cannot allow Castillo Industries to be dragged through the mud by my son's choice. His voice was ice. One director, Mr. Adebayo, shifted in his chair. Sir, these are unverified claims. Eduardo cut him off. Nevertheless, the optics are disastrous. We initiate a PR statement questioning the legitimacy of Ms. Moreno's credentials. We plant doubts about her achievements. Leo must see the collateral. Adebayo hesitated. But sir, Leo is on the board. Eduardo's eyes narrowed. Then let him resign. He can choose his fiancée or our company. Back at the cafe, Leo's phone buzzed. He read the terse message. Resign from Castillo Industries by tomorrow or face public fallout. His blood ran cold. He looked at Isla. They're attacking me now. She reached across. They'll stop at nothing. Leo inhaled. Then we fight. Her hand squeezed his. Together. Beyond the cafe's fogged windows, the city lights pulsed on. For Leo and Isla, the war had shifted from whispered threats to open fire. And in that battle, only truths, no matter how deep in the past, would decide their future. The morning sun glinted off the Castillo mansion's fountain as Leo and Isla arrived hand in hand. Their wedding, once a private promise, was now a lightning rod. Word of the PR campaign and Leo's ultimatum had spread. Reporters hovered like vultures near the gate. Isla's heart pounded beneath her lace gown. She clutched the bouquet of white orchids, their fragrance calming. Leo led her past the journalists, past the grand double doors, into the marble foyer. Inside, the extended Castillo family assembled, cousins in tailored suits, aunts in silk-head scarves, and marquises of influence. All wore masks of neutrality, except Eduardo. He stood at the foot of the grand staircase, face impassive. Leo drew a steadying breath. Let's do this, he whispered. They stepped forward. Eduardo's gaze held Leo's for a heartbeat too long, then flicked to Isla. Her pulse thundered. The ceremony was swift, an officiant's ritual words, vows whispered, rings exchanged. At the pronouncement, Leo lifted Isla's hand, smiling triumphantly. Reporters outside snapped shutters in a frenzy. But then Eduardo spoke, voice clear. Leo? Leo's smile faltered. He set the bouquet aside. I never thought I'd see this day, Eduardo said, gaze locked on his son. And yet here you stand. He gestured to Isla. This woman you chose. I feared she would ruin you. Instead, you have ruined me. Gasps in the foyer. Leo's fists clenched. Eduardo continued. You have torn down the walls of pride I built. You have torn me apart. He turned to Isla. You wear my son's future like a crown of thorns. Leo stepped between them. Enough. Eduardo held up a hand. You haven't heard the worst. This union splits this family. If you truly love her, Leo, you will leave with her now. Silence settled. Isla's lips parted, then she swallowed. Leo's heart lurched. He looked at his bride, then at his father. You gave me an ultimatum, father. I refused to choose legacy over love. Eduardo's shoulders straightened. Then leave. Leo reached for Isla's hand. Together, they turned toward the exit, their footsteps echoing through the divided house. The door swung shut behind them with a definitive click. Outside, the reporters fell silent as the couple emerged, exiled, united, and determined. Behind them, the Castillo mansion stood with a fractured roof and shattered pillars. A house divided against itself, waiting to see whether love or legacy would ultimately prevail. Morning light filtered through the slatted blinds of Isla's modest townhouse, casting striped shadows across the hardwood floor. She stirred from a restless sleep to the faintest crunch beneath her slippers, something against the welcome mat outside her door. Heart thudding, she slipped from the bedroom and crept toward the foyer. There on the mat lay a plain ivory envelope, no stamp, no return address. Her name was scrawled across the front in heavy black ink. Isla Moreno. The sight of it sent a jolt of unease through her. She glanced over her shoulder. Leo was still asleep in the spare bedroom. He needed rest after last night's turmoil. Carefully, Isla picked up the envelope. The paper felt thick, almost damp. She studied it for clues, fingerprints, smudges, the faintest watermark, but the surface betrayed nothing. With trembling fingers, she slipped it into her robe pocket and retreated to the kitchen, where the kettle hissed to life. Leo emerged minutes later, yawning, hair mussed. He spotted the envelope in Isla's hand. "What's that?" he asked, concern etched on his face. She hesitated, then held it out. "Found it on the mat." He frowned, took it, and examined the front. No stamp. He turned the envelope over. Nothing. Isla sipped her tea. "It feels ominous." Leo's jaw tightened. "Open it." With a deep breath, Isla slit the flap and withdrew a single sheet of cream-colored paper. The message inside was typed in all capital letters. "Leave him now, before it's too late." Beneath the warning, no signature. No clue who had sent it. Just the star command. Isla's pulse raced. Who would do this? Leo set his cup down and drew her close. "Your enemy or my father's?" Tears welled in Isla's eyes. "Why threaten me?" Leo placed a gentle hand on her cheek. "To scare you off." She swallowed hard. "They think this will break me." He reached for the note. "They're wrong." He balled the paper in his fist. "We'll show them we won't back down." Isla nodded, steeling herself. Yet in the pit of her stomach, dread settled like concrete. The message implied knowledge of her every move. How long she stayed away from home. How far she had come. Leo fetched his coat. "We're not alone in this." Outside, the morning air was crisp. He held the envelope open to the sky and let the breeze snatch it from his hand. It spiraled away, carrying the threat with it, until only blue sky remained. Isla watched the paper drift. "Now what?" she asked softly. "We investigate," Leo replied, slipping his arm around her shoulders. "We'll find who's behind this, and we'll make sure they regret ever trying to scare us." She leaned into him, drawing strength from his resolve. The warning had failed to cripple her. Instead, it ignited a fierce determination. No threat, no smear, no ultimatum would ever drive her away from the love she and Leo shared. And as they turned back toward the townhouse, hand in hand, the early sun seemed to shine on their defiance. Two hearts united against a storm of secrets and lies, ready to face whatever came next. That evening, Isla paced the cramped living room of Leo's apartment, phone pressed to her ear. She had called every friend, every colleague, anyone who might shed light on the anonymous warning. But each lead had gone nowhere. No one recognized the handwriting. No security cameras on the street. No digital trail. "Something's coming," she muttered into the handset, ending the call. She glanced at Leo, who sat at the kitchen table strewn with open files, financial reports, press clippings, and personal photos taken before and after their exile. He looked up, concern etched across his features. "I'm sorry it's taking time." She shook her head, frustration clear. "It's not your fault." The phone vibrated again. Another unknown number, this time a voice message. Leo tapped the screen. A raspy voice spoke. "Come alone to the Oakwood Bistro at 9. Come alone, or you'll regret dragging my son into this." Then the line went dead. Isla's blood ran cold. "He wants to meet." Leo reached for her hand. "We shouldn't." "Yes, we should," she interrupted, voice firm. "I need to know who's behind this, and I need to show them I'm not afraid." He studied her, torn between fear and admiration. What if it's a trap? Isla lifted her chin. "I can handle myself." At precisely 9, she arrived at Oakwood Bistro, a dimly lit restaurant known for its privacy. She chose a corner table, facing the door. Her heart hammered as she sipped mineral water, scanning each newcomer. Moments later, a tall figure approached, Eduardo Castillo, wearing a tailored overcoat, despite the summer heat. His expression was neutral, unreadable. Isla stood, breath catching. "Good evening, Ms. Moreno," Eduardo greeted, voice smooth. He settled into the seat across from her. She forced a polite smile. "Mr. Castillo." His eyes flicked to the empty chair beside Isla. "Might I suggest you brought?" She bristled. "You asked me to come alone." He raised a hand. "Fair enough." He leaned forward, steepling his fingers. "I hope you realize how dangerous this path is." His proximity sent a chill through her. "My path is my own." Eduardo's gaze hardened. "I'm aware of that, but I'm also aware of how easily it can be destroyed." Isla's pulse quickened. "What do you want?" He smiled thinly. "To offer you an out." He lifted a leather folder and slid it across the table. $1 million. No questions asked. Walk away from my son. Start anew. Her breath caught. She stared at the folder. Money, enough to set up a comfortable life, far from the Castillo storm. "And if I refuse?" she asked, tone steady despite the tempest inside. Eduardo's smile vanished. "Then you'll face consequences far worse than an anonymous warning." He tapped the table. "Think carefully, Isla." Silence stretched between them. The muffled clink of cutlery from surrounding tables seemed distant. Isla met his gaze. "I refuse." Eduardo's lips curved into a predatory smile. "So be it." He rose and tucked the folder under his arm. "Enjoy your meal." Without another word, he strode away. Isla exhaled, trembling, anger, relief, fear mingling in her chest. She stared at the folder, then pushed it away. Her refusal was a declaration, no bribe. No threat would sever the bond she and Leo shared. As she left the bistro into the cool night, her footsteps echoed determination. The devil had dined, but she had refused his offer. Now the real battle would begin. Back in Leo's apartment, Isla collapsed onto the sofa, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Leo sat beside her, eyes wide. She wordlessly handed him the leather folder. He opened it with trembling fingers. Inside were stacks of crisp bills, enough to buy a small house, and a typed contract. Isla Moreno agrees to permanently sever ties with Leo Castillo. In exchange, she will receive $1 million. His voice was barely audible. He actually offered this. Isla nodded, eyes glistening. "He wants to buy me off." Leo closed the folder with a snap. "And you refused." She sat forward. "I said no. I'd rather have nothing than a relationship that costs someone I love." He reached for her hand. "I'm proud of you." She exhaled, releasing some tension. "But now he'll double down." Leo ran a hand through his hair. "We need to be prepared." Isla squared her shoulders. "Let him try. We'll let the truth speak." 2 days later, Leo and Isla sat across from each other at the kitchen table, which groaned under the weight of documents. Among them lay a battered leather journal, Veronica Castillo's journal, discovered when they rummaged through the old family estate for any leverage. Isla traced the embossed initials on the cover. VC. She looked up at Leo. "Ready to dive in?" He nodded. "We need every piece of evidence we can find." She carefully opened the journal. The pages were handwritten in neat cursive. The first entry began, June 12, 1998. "Eduardo is more distant lately. I fear his ambition is consuming him. I see shadows where there should be light." Isla's eyes widened. Her words. Leo leaned in. "Read on." She flipped through first-hand accounts of family dinners, financial decisions, and personal regrets. Veronica described how Eduardo had pushed her into sales tactics that skirted legality, how she had confronted him, and how he vowed never to let anyone betray the family name again. "It's all here," Isla whispered. "Proof of wrongdoing on Eduardo's part." Leo's heart pounded. They had the ammunition to counter every smear, every threat. But a question nagged at Isla. Why didn't Veronica go public? Leo glanced at a later entry. October 3rd, 2002. "I fear speaking out will destroy our family. I love my son too much to see him suffer because of my husband's choices." Tears welled in Isla's eyes. She protected her family, even from herself. Leo squeezed her hand. Now it's our turn to honor her sacrifice. They spent the evening transcribing key passages and planning their next move. With Veronica's words as their shield, they could expose Eduardo's pattern of deceit. But as the night deepened, both knew that wielding these revelations would come at a cost. the final unraveling of a family legacy built on secrets. A week later, Leo sat alone in the dimly lit study of the Castillo estate, riffling through mahogany shelves for the original journal. The estate was eerily silent now, abandoned by staff and shuttered by scandal. Dust motes drifted in the shafts of afternoon sun. He found the journal wedged behind a row of leather-bound law texts. Its spine was cracked, the pages yellowed. He carried it back to Isla's apartment and placed it reverently on the table. Isla joined him, eyes bright with anticipation. "You found it." Leo nodded, opening the cover. Every word. Together, they pored over Veronica's entries, accounts of betrayal, of moral conflicts, and of a love tested by power. One passage stood out. May 17th, 2003. I discovered that Eduardo orchestrated the downfall of Isla's family business when they refused to comply with our merger demands. He cornered them financially, then spread rumors to break their spirit. Isla's breath caught. He ruined us. Leo closed the journal, voice thick. Now we can hold him accountable. They devised a plan, compile evidence, reach out to former board members, and leak Veronica's journal selectively to the press. The goal was clear: shatter Eduardo's empire and vindicate Isla's name. But as they worked late into the night, a knock at the door sent jolts through both. Leo opened it to reveal Marcos Castillo, Leo's cousin, face drawn, guilt-ridden. "Can I come in?" Marcos asked, voice low. Surprised, Leo stepped aside. "Sure." Marcos entered, closing the door gently. "I found out about the journal." His gaze flicked to the open pages. "Your mother's words, she was right. Eduardo crossed every line." Isla and Leo exchanged glances. Trust was scarce, but they needed an ally. Marcos swallowed hard. "I want to help." Leo studied him. "Why?" Marcos paced. "Because I can't be part of a lie any longer. I've seen what he's done. To your family, to ours. I'm tired of hiding it." Isla stood. "You realize the consequences?" Marcos nodded. "I'm ready." In that moment, the three of them formed an uneasy alliance. With Veronica's journal as their foundation, they would expose Eduardo's legacy of ruin. But as Marcos leaned in to read the next entry, each knew that bringing the truth to light would demand more than courage. It would demand sacrifice. Early the next morning, Isla found a small recorder wedged under her welcome mat. No note, just the familiar leather strap she recognized from the Castillo estate. She pressed play. Veronica's soft voice emerged. "My dear Leo, if you're hearing this, it means I could not protect you in time. But know that truth is the only inheritance worth passing on. Your father's ambitions will threaten everything you hold dear. Do not let him win." Tears blurred Isla's vision. She played the message again. "Isla, you who loved my son when I could not, thank you. Keep him safe. Keep the love alive. My last act is to reveal what I hid." Leo entered, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Isla held out the recorder. "Listen." He pressed play, his face paling. When the message ended, he looked at Isla, voice trembling. She recorded this before she. Isla nodded. She knew something would happen. Leo paced. This is more than a journal entry. It's her final plea." Isla reached for the recorder. "We have to share this." They contacted a trusted investigative journalist and arranged a meeting. In a quiet cafe, they handed over the recorder, the journal, and corroborating documents Marcos had unearthed. The journalist listened, eyes widening as Veronica's voice filled the room. When the recorder clicked off, he sat back, stunned. "This is explosive." Leo nodded. "We need the world to hear her words." The journalist tapped at his laptop. "We'll verify everything and publish tomorrow morning. Veronica's message will break the story." Walking back to the apartment, Isla linked arms with Leo. "It's out of our hands now." He inhaled sharply. "We did it for her, for us." Their victory tasted bittersweet. A mother's final sacrifice had become their weapon. As dawn broke over the city, its light promised both reckoning for Eduardo and redemption for Isla and Leo. But with so many lives poised on the edge of revelation, they braced for the storm that was sure to follow. Dawn's pale light crept across the hardwood floor as Marcos Castillo slipped into Isla's apartment, his expression taut with urgency. In his hand he clutched a slim USB drive, black, unmarked, and humming with possibility. He halted in the living room, where Leo poured coffee at the kitchen counter. Isla looked up from her laptop, concern etching her features. "I found it," Marcos announced, voice low. He thrust the drive toward Leo. "Everything you need." Leo's brow furrowed. "What is it?" Marcos pressed play on his phone, projecting emails, internal memos, and financial contracts onto the wall. "Proof that Eduardo orchestrated the collapse of your family's business," he said, eyes flicking to Isla. "Blackmail, smear campaigns, insider trading. He used company funds to destroy them when they resisted his hostile takeover." Isla's jaw tightened as the document scrolled past. An unsigned letter threatening her father, a ledger entry shifting funds to shell corporations, and a taped phone call in which Eduardo's voice coldly dispatched a smear. "He confessed," Marcos continued. "He wanted you painted as the villain, so you'd vanish." Leo closed his eyes, grief and rage mingling. This changes everything." Isla reached out to steady him. "We need to move carefully." Marcos nodded. "I've duplicated the drive and stored it off-site. But if we leak this recklessly, Eduardo will unleash every legal and PR resource he has." Leo met Isla's gaze. "He's already done that. Now it's our turn." They gathered around the coffee table, laptops open. Isla began organizing files into folders. Evidence, communications, financials. Leo drafted emails to allied board members, while Marcos prepared a chain of custody log. Each click and keystroke felt like loading the barrels of a gun aimed straight at Eduardo's reputation. By midday, they had a dossier complete with notarized affidavits from former executives willing to testify. The weight of truth lay heavy on the table. Leo cleared his throat. "We present this to the board next week, and if they refuse to act, we go public." Isla nodded. "And I'll give a statement. I'll face the cameras and tell my side." Marcos exhaled. "Then let's make sure nothing's missing." He handed the USB drive to Leo. "This is our bullet." As they stepped back, the apartment felt electric, charged with possibility and dread. In that moment, 3 hearts beat in unison. A cousin seeking redemption, a son reclaiming his birthright, and a woman seeking vindication. When the files were secured and backups confirmed, Leo closed his laptop and looked at Isla. "Tomorrow we light the fuse." She squeezed his hand. Together. Outside, the city's pulse quickened, unaware that by week's end, the world would witness the downfall of a patriarch and the triumphant rise of truth. Leo's heart pounded as he stepped into his father's soaring office for the first time in weeks. Polished glass walls offered a panoramic view of the city, but he barely registered the skyscrapers. All he saw was the man who had threatened his future and broken his family. Eduardo Castillo sat behind his signature mahogany desk, arms crossed, expression unreadable. The legal pad in front of him was blank, as if waiting for fresh accusations. Leo squared his shoulders. "Father." Eduardo's eyes remained fixed on the skyline. "You summoned me." He did. Leo swallowed his anger and laid the USB drive on the desk like a gauntlet. "I have something you need to see." Eduardo regarded it coolly. Isla's next smear. Leo slid the drive closer. Hard evidence. He explained how Marcos had uncovered memos, call recordings, and bank transfers. Proof of Eduardo's role in wiping out Isla's family name. Eduardo closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them, calm as ice. "You think this matters?" he asked, voice flat. "Board meetings happen every month. My network is airtight." Leo's jaw clenched. "This is not just a boardroom dispute. It's criminal." Eduardo set his palms on the desk. Accusations without conviction are meaningless. He reached into his jacket and produced a sealed envelope. "I have my own evidence. Emails showing Isla's family accepted money from shell companies. Fraud. You'll also find testimony from employees alleging she used insider information." Leo's heart sank as Eduardo placed the envelope atop the drive. "We're even." He met his son's gaze. Do you really believe your journal and recordings trump my years of building this empire? Leo's voice trembled but remained firm. I believe the truth will out. Eduardo offered a sardonic smile. Then let's see whose truth the world believes. He swept both items into a folder. You should leave now. I have phone calls to make. Leo felt the office spin. He forced himself to nod. I will hold you accountable. Eduardo stood and offered a stiff nod. Prove it. As Leo walked out, the doors closing behind him with a decisive click, he realized this reunion was illusory. There would be no confession, no reconciliation, only a countdown to a public reckoning neither of them could avoid. That night, Isla lay awake as Leo pored over final drafts of their press release. The dossier was attached in full. Their plan, sent to a trusted investigative journalist, who agreed to break the story at dawn. At 2 a.m., Leo hit send. Immediately, the journalist confirmed receipt. This goes live at 7. Prepare for fallout. Isla's stomach churned. Are you sure? Leo nodded. Truth doesn't wait. They switched off lights and tried to sleep, but by 6:30 a.m., the first alerts chimed on their phones. Breaking. Castillo Industries in crisis. Patriarch accused of corporate sabotage. Exclusive. Veronica Castillo's journal reveals family betrayal. Within minutes, headlines exploded across online outlets. Social media churned with hashtag Castillo exposed and hashtag no sanafmin would love Viagra like that trending worldwide. Video clips of Veronica's final message circulated, her voice haunting millions. Isla stared at her phone, tears of relief and fear mingling. It's out. Leo put an arm around her. They can't unsee this. At dawn, cameras swarmed the Castillo estate. Reporters shouted questions as Eduardo stepped onto the veranda. He raised a hand, silence falling. I am aware of the allegations, he said, tone controlled. They are completely false. My son and his fiancée have chosen to smear me to force their own agenda. I will vigorously defend my name. Reporters pressed him. Mr. Castillo, what do you say about the leaked bank transfers? He offered a tight smile. Fabrications. Back inside, he watched live streams showing Isla's tearful address. I stand by the evidence, she declared. I have nothing to hide. Eduardo's face twisted as his fortress of reputation crumbled in real time. By noon, independent auditors were called in, and Castillo Industries' board convened an emergency session. The world watched as a titan faced his trial, online, live, and irreversible. In their apartment, Leo and Isla held hands, bracing for the next move. The leak had struck the first blow, but the war was far from over. 2 days later, the Castillo boardroom crackled with tension. Eduardo sat at the head of the table, flanked by directors and legal counsel. Every seat around him seemed to radiate suspicion. Mr. Castillo, began Adebayo, senior director, voice grave. The evidence is irrefutable. We have audited files, sworn statements, and recorded memos. We cannot ignore this. Eduardo leaned back, eyes cold. This is a vendetta orchestrated by my son and his fiancée. I refuse to resign based on accusations they concocted. A hush fell. Then another director, Mrs. Salami, spoke up. If you do not step down voluntarily, we will initiate a vote of no confidence. Eduardo's face hardened like marble. Do your worst. With that, proceedings accelerated, motions filed, proxy votes tallied, and within hours, the board declared Eduardo unfit to continue as CEO. A stunned gasp echoed through the chamber. Outside, helicopters hovered over headquarters, beaming lights across the plaza. News crews broadcast the downfall live. Eduardo Castillo ousted. Empire falls. Daughter-in-law's triumph. In a quiet corner of the building, Leo and Isla watched the live feed on their phones. Leo's jaw clenched. It's done. Isla reached for his hand. You did this. He shook his head. We did this. Back in the boardroom, Eduardo rose slowly. His shoulders were rigid, pride intact, but empire shattered. He gathered his possessions with mechanical precision, avoiding eye contact with any director. As he passed the lectern, he paused and spoke in a voice that carried through the empty chamber. You may have one today, but remember, legacies aren't built on truth alone. They're built on loyalty. Then he walked out. That evening, the Castillo mansion lay dark, save for a single light in Eduardo's study. Leo and Isla entered quietly, drawn by a note he had left. Come alone. Inside, they found Eduardo seated behind his desk, head bowed. He looked up when they entered. I'm not here to fight, he said, voice softer than before. I've lost everything, my company, my standing, my family. You won. Leo exchanged a glance with Isla. He stepped forward. This was never about winning. It was about justice. Eduardo inclined his head. Perhaps. He paused, then reached into a drawer and extracted a small box. The engagement ring Leo had first offered Isla. I never imagined it would come back to you. Isla gasped. Eduardo continued, voice wavering. I see now where I went wrong. I was so obsessed with control, I forgot what truly matters. Leo took a breath. What do you want, father? Eduardo closed his eyes. To start over. Under the rose canopy in Isla's childhood garden, replanted in Leo's apartment courtyard, soft lantern light twinkled like fireflies in the warm evening air. Friends and allies gathered discreetly. Marcos Adebayo, the investigative journalist, and a handful of board members who had supported truth. Isla stepped into the circle of light, wearing a simple ivory dress that fluttered in the breeze. Leo stood before her, heart pounding. He held a small wooden box, humble, handcrafted by Isla's late father. My love, he began, voice rich with emotion. We began this journey under fire and falsehood. We fought storms that sought to break us, and truths that sought to silence us. Yet here we stand, hand in hand, proof that love can withstand even the harshest trials. Isla's eyes shimmered in the lantern glow. Leo opened the box to reveal a delicate ring, a slender band of rose gold, set with a single pearl from Isla's mother's necklace. Isla Moreno, he continued, kneeling on one knee in the soft grass. You are more than an inheritance or a legacy. You are my choice, my anchor, my truth. Will you marry me again, on your terms, in your light, with our story written by our hearts? Tears slipped down Isla's cheeks as she nodded, voice thick. Yes, Leo Castillo, again and always. They embraced as lanterns floated upward, carrying their promises into the night sky. Around them, friends applauded softly, and even Eduardo watched from the doorway, a proud smile breaking through his remorse. In that garden, they rewrote their story, not as a legacy dictated by blood or fortune, but as a testament to love's triumph over fear and lies. And in their hearts, they knew this proposal would echo far longer than any empire ever could. Morning air carried the scent of fresh jasmine and the hum of awakening cicadas. Each breath felt like a blessing, each heartbeat echoing the defiance that had led them here. Isla stood beneath the ancient oak tree at dawn, dew-laden grass brushing her feet, lanterns swaying softly in the morning breeze. Leo emerged from the shadowed tree-lane, wearing a simple charcoal suit chosen by Isla herself. His tie was loosened, top button undone as a symbol of breaking tradition. Across from them, a small circle of close friends and allies formed a semicircle. Marcos Adebayo, the investigative journalist who leaked the truth, and two former board members willing to testify. No family, no patriarch, no velvet ropes or marble floors, just truth. She smiled, voice trembling with emotion. I never imagined our wedding would feel so honest. Leo reached for her hand. I promised you a marriage defined by our terms, not by legacy or decree. His eyes glinted with warmth and mischief. Will you still marry me officially, under witnesses who matter most? Isla laughed softly, brushing hair behind her ear. Only if you still stand by your vow after all we've weathered. Behind them, the lanterns flickered as the sun began to crest the horizon. Marcos cleared his throat, holding a bouquet of white lilies salvaged from Isla's mother's old conservatory. By the power vested in friendship and truth, he began, voice steady, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Adebayo, checking the small bound book of vows, added solemnity. May your union endure beyond scandal, beyond fear, and beyond every storm. Isla and Leo exchanged smiles that spoke of battles won and battles yet to come. Then Leo lifted Isla's hand, placing a delicate ring crafted from her mother's heirloom pearls onto her finger. The ring glinted against early light. She countered by slipping a narrow silver band onto his finger, etched with their initials. "Now you're my husband again," she said, voice rich with triumph. They sealed their vows with a kiss, tender yet fierce. Around them, the small gathering erupted in gentle applause. A soft breeze carried petals strewn by the journalist's assistant, showering the couple like confetti. Moments later, Leo took Isla aside. "Do you remember the first time I saw you under an oak tree?" he asked, voice soft. She nodded, eyes sparkling. "You spilled coffee on my notes, and I thought you were the clumsiest man alive." He laughed. "And you've forgiven me with that smile that changed my life." Isla's gaze turned upward to the oak's gnarled branches. "My mother always said this tree witnessed every promise worth keeping." Leo placed his hand over her heart. "Then let's promise to protect each other always." Marcos approached, raising a thermos of coffee. To the bride and groom, proof that true love can rewrite any rule. They toasted with mugs in the soft morning light. As the group dispersed to trade memories and laughter, Leo and Isla lingered beneath the oak. He brushed a stray lock from her face. "Are you ready for Chapter 17, whatever that holds?" She grinned. "As long as I face it with you." Soft dew clung to their shoes as they stepped away, leaving footprints of hope and resilience to mark the path ahead. Together, boldly. Beyond the oak, the horizon glowed with promise and uncertainty. They knew storms awaited, judicial hearings, media scrutiny, and the legacy they had unsettled. Yet for now, they stood united under the oak canopy, a newlywed couple consecrated not by tradition, but by truth. No invitation needed. Soft jasmine and cut grass filled the air, mingling with the warm hum of cicadas. Lantern light glittered like fireflies against the darkening sky. The community center's old brick walls seemed to glow with new purpose. 2 weeks after their clandestine wedding, Leo and Isla organized a small reception in the courtyard of the community center that Isla had reopened. White string lights hung between pillars, and round tables draped in cream linens waited to welcome guests. A single chair at the head table was draped with a delicate lace shawl, reserved for Eduardo Castillo, in hopes of reconciliation and forgiveness. Guests arrived at dusk, childhood friends of Isla, former colleagues of Leo, and members of the community whose lives had been touched by Isla's mother's center. Warm laughter mingled with the scent of jasmine tea and vanilla rice pilaf. Music drifted from a small acoustic duo, tuning their guitars near the entrance. Children chased fireflies in the grass, sprinkling magic in every corner. Isla flitted between tables, offering hugs and heartfelt thanks. Leo followed closely, fielding business inquiries from supportive board members, some nonplussed, some empathetic. When they reached the head table, Isla gently straightened the lace on the empty chair. "It feels strange, this space," she murmured. Leo placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "He'll come," he whispered. "He may not understand, but he'll come." Time passed, and the chair remained empty. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light that turned to violet shadows. Guests began to murmur. "Is something wrong? Did he get the invitation?" Marcos whispered to Leo, eyebrow raised. "We saved a seat for him. Silence speaks louder than absence." Isla swallowed hard, refusing to let tears fall. She raised her glass. "To those who stand by us, even in the absence of one." The crowd toasted, voices melding in unity. Yet in that harmony, the empty chair loomed, a silent testament to broken bonds and unspoken regrets. After the gate closed, a murmur spread. Mrs. Salami dabbed her eyes, whispering to Adebayo. He was a friend too long to lose. Adebayo nodded, voice heavy. Pride is the hardest barrier of all. Just as Leo began to loosen his tie, a hush settled over the courtyard. Heads turned toward the gate. A lone figure stood framed against the wrought iron bars. Eduardo Castillo, coat slung over one shoulder, face pale, but eyes bright with apology. His posture was stiff, as if he did not belong in this gentle setting. He lifted a trembling hand in greeting. Guests watched in stunned silence as he turned and walked away without entering. The gate clicked shut behind him. Isla's breath caught. She stared at the open gate, then at the empty chair. A murmur spread, wonder, confusion, compassionate sympathy. Leo reached for her hand. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. She shook her head. "Thank you for trying." Tears glistened in her eyes. She approached where Eduardo had stood, brushing dew from the grass. "I understand," she whispered, voice steady. Leo joined her. "He's afraid. Afraid of losing face. Afraid of what he's done." Isla folded the lace shawl and draped it around her shoulders. "I choose to forgive." She placed the shawl on Leo's lap and returned to the head table. That night, the empty chair became a symbol of healing and waiting, a promise that one day, filled or empty, the heart could learn to accept even the hardest of absences. And as Leo and Isla danced under the lanterns, they held each other close, knowing that forgiveness might come later, but love would always be present. Back at their apartment the next morning, Isla found a cream-colored envelope delicately tucked under the front doormat. Her name was scripted in her mother's curling handwriting, though the ink looked fresh. She knelt to pick it up, heart fluttering with anticipation and unease. Beside her, Leo prepared coffee, humming softly as if unaware of the tremor in Isla's hand. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with warmth from the toaster, where slices of artisan bread waited to brown. Isla rose and placed the envelope on the kitchen island. "I didn't leave this," she whispered. Leo set the coffee mugs down and peered at the envelope. "It bears your mother's style, but it's new. Should I open it?" Isla nodded, her pulse quickening. She slit the flap with a letter opener and unfolded the single sheet of paper inside. The paper was embossed with a stylized sea crest, Castillo Industries' old logo. Her breath caught. The letter read, "My dearest Isla, if you are reading this, know that I could not bring myself to speak these words in person. I regret the pain I have caused you and my son. My anger was born of fear, fear of losing everything I built, fear of betrayal. Yet in my stubborn heart, I see now that my actions were misguided. You were never the enemy. You were the hope I refused to see. Every fight I launched in your name only wounded my son and tarnished the legacy I thought I protected. I will not ask for forgiveness. Forgiveness is your gift to give, unearned by me. I only wish for you to know that regret has finally found me, and I carry it like a heavy cloak. Rest assured, I will step aside from the board that remains, so our shared history can heal without my shadow. With cautious respect, Eduardo Castillo." Isla's hands trembled as she read. Leo watched her, concern etching his face. "What does it say?" She sniffed back tears. "He regrets it all, but he will not ask for forgiveness." Her voice broke on that last phrase. "He sounds proud even in regret." Leo reached out and cradled her shoulders. "What do you feel?" She pressed the letter to her chest. Relief that he understands. Sadness that it took so long. And hope that one day he might find peace. Leo nodded gently. "That's enough for now." She folded the letter carefully and tucked it into the shawl box they had kept after the wedding. "This will go with the others," she said, referring to Veronica's journal and the journalist's recorder. "Our history, our truth." Leo sipped his coffee in silence, letting sunlight fill the room. Outside, the city stirred. Somewhere, the Castillo board would formalize Eduardo's departure. Somewhere, family legacies would shift. Isla folded the letter with trembling hands and tucked it into her shawl box alongside her mother's journal and Veronica's recorder, each a chapter of truth. Leo placed his hand over hers, whispering that history might forgive with time. Together, they stood ready to write their own unfettered final chapter. Peaceful dawn promise. And though the sting of absence lingered, the weight of hope anchored her heart, stronger than any fear a letter could bring. Isla stood before the crumbling entrance of her mother's community center, paint peeling from shutters and vines reclaiming brickwork. Leo arrived at her side, carrying a toolbox and broad-brimmed hat to shield from midday sun. Together, they gazed at the faded sign, Moreno Family Community Center. Dust motes danced in slanted beams of light through broken windows. Soft scent of jasmine lingered from the gardens her mother had planted. Neighbors paused along the sidewalk, offering smiles and dusting off seedlings from their hands. An elderly woman named Mama Yemi brought biscuits and cool water in gleaming glass bottles. The community had not forgotten. "We've come full circle," Leo said, voice soft. He set the toolbox down and removed his hat, handing it to Isla. "Your mother started this place with nothing but hope and determination." Isla brushed a lock of hair from her face. "I was just 12 when she built it. I remember the laughter and the music." She traced the initials carved into the wooden post at the threshold. "It feels sacred." Leo lifted a loose brick. "Then let's honor her vision." He set to work, prying off decayed wood panels. Sweat beaded on his brow. Isla knelt and cleared vines from the foundation. "We'll hire volunteers, students from the center, locals who owe her kindness." She paused as a small group gathered, Marcos, Adebayo, even skeptical board members who'd seen the press. Each carried paintbrushes and rakes. Marcos cracked his knuckles. "Let's rebuild." He hefted a bucket of fresh paint. "I brought more brushes." Adebayo nodded. "We'll restore her legacy brick by brick." As hammer met nail, laughter returned. Conversations rekindled. "Pass the nail gun." "Mind the plumbing." "Remember how she taught art here?" Guests swapped memories, forging new bonds. Leo stepped back, admiring the scene. "This feels right." Isla paused and watched volunteers repaint window frames of vibrant turquoise, the color her mother had chosen for hope. "It's exactly how I remember it." She turned to Leo. "Thank you for believing in this dream." He wrapped an arm around her. "Your mother's spirit built more than walls. She built a family." An hour later, the front doors swung open on repaired hinges, revealing a restored foyer. Sunlight flooded the once dark hall. A stunned hush fell. Then cheers erupted. Later, as sunset gilded the fresh paint, a group of children tumbled into the courtyard, excitement bright in their eyes. "Story time," they shouted. Isla laughed, scooping up a toddler named Kemi. "The first event," she declared. Leo balanced a stack of folding chairs. "Always start with the children." Marcos pulled Isla aside. "Your mother would be proud." She closed her eyes, voice thick. "I think I see her here." She gestured to painted murals and trembled memory. Her voice caught with gratitude. Leo caught her hand. "Her legacy lives on." Isla stepped inside, breathing in the scent of fresh paint and new beginnings. "Welcome home," she whispered. Leo handed her ribbon-cutting scissors. "Care to reopen?" She smiled broadly and snipped the ribbon, the heavy fabric falling to reveal the renovated space. Applause swelled. Volunteers erupted in celebration, hugging and cheering. As lanterns glimmered overhead in the newly restored courtyard, Isla and Leo shared soft laughter and quiet conversation about the future. Classes, community events, and a permanent scholarship in Veronica's name. In that restored hall, Isla found peace. In Leo's support, she found strength. Together, they would face tomorrow fearlessly. It was 3 days after the community center's grand reopening when Leo received the call. His phone buzzed in his pocket during dinner. He excused himself and answered, face paling as he listened. The message was terse. "Come immediately. Hospital. Eduardo Castillo." Isla looked up. "What is it?" Leo closed his eyes, swallowing hard. "My father," he collapsed at the board meeting. He settled the phone on the table. "They say it's a severe heart attack." Isla's hand flew to her mouth. "Is he alive?" Leo nodded. "He's in ICU. They're stabilizing him." They drove through city streets lit by flickering lampposts. Leo's mind raced. Memories of heated boardroom battles, the letter of regret, the empty chair. Now his father lay fragile in a hospital bed. Fear and uncertainty gripped him. At the lobby of St. Agnes Hospital, Leo approached the reception desk. "I'm Leo Castillo. I need to see my father." The nurse looked up, sympathetic but firm. "He's critical. Only immediate family allowed. Please wait." She handed Leo a visitor badge. "Ward C, room 12." Leo swallowed and called Isla. I'll go in. Thank you for coming with me. Isla nodded, tears shining in her eyes. I'll wait here. Leo entered the ICU corridor, white walls humming with machines. He approached room 12 and paused at the door. Behind it, machines beeped rhythmic alarms. He took a deep breath and entered. Leo's mind wandered to childhood afternoons when Eduardo steadied his bicycle at the community center, guiding him with patient hands. Those memories felt distant now, replaced by clashes and regret. In this corridor, he longed to reclaim the warmth they once shared. Eduardo lay pale, tubes snaking from his arms and nose. His face, once so commanding, was relaxed in unconscious repose. Leo approached the bedside and took his hand, thin now, veins blue beneath translucent skin. An attendant stepped out. Mr. Castillo, visitation ends in 30 minutes. Leo nodded. Thank you. The attendant moved on. Leo spoke softly to his father. Dad, it's me. Leo. His voice cracked. You scared me. Outside the ward, a small group of volunteers from the community center knelt in the hospital's chapel corridor, their whispered prayers echoing. They clasped each other's hands, hopeful that Eduardo's heart would be strong enough to heal. Eduardo stirred, eyelids fluttering. He whispered, voice raspy, Leo, you should be not here. Leo squeezed his hand. I'm here. I need you to get better. Eduardo coughed weakly. You and Isla, you did more than I ever imagined. Tears streamed down Leo's cheeks. No need to ask. I already forgave you. Eduardo's eyes closed again. Leo remained by his side until the nurse returned. He stood and placed a gentle kiss on his father's forehead. I'll be back tomorrow. Isla joined him outside. She wrapped Leo in a hug as he emerged. How is he? He's alive, Leo said. And I think he meant it. Isla tightened her arms around him. We'll be with him. He's part of the family still. As sunrise approached, Leo and Isla sat side by side, watching monitors. They understood that recovery would be arduous, yet they held faith that love would mend fractured hearts. They walked into the night, resolved to support Eduardo's recovery. The lines between past grievances and present need blurred. In the hush of the hospital lobby, Leo realized healing would demand compassion from all sides, and that sometimes love was the greatest medicine of all. Leo pushed open the heavy hospital door, with Isla trailing at his side. The air smelled of antiseptic and hope. Eduardo sat propped on white pillows, fragile but alert. Their eyes met, years of conflict condensed into a single moment. Isla stepped forward. Grandfather, she began softly, using his old nickname. Eduardo's mouth curved into a tentative smile. I'm recovering, he rasped. Leo clasped his father's hand. Thank you for fighting. Eduardo's gaze shifted to Isla. I wanted to say, I am sorry. I let fear rule me. I attacked your honor without listening. His voice shook. I see now you stood by my son when I pushed him away. Tears pricked Isla's eyes. She placed a gentle hand on his arm. We all make mistakes, she said, but healing begins when we acknowledge them. Leo exchanged a glance with his wife. We rebuilt more than a community center, he reminded Eduardo. We rebuilt trust. Eduardo inhaled, voice soft. I want to be part of that. He looked between them. Can you forgive me? His vulnerability stunned them. Isla nodded. We forgive you. Leo squeezed Eduardo's hand. A nurse peeked in. Visiting hours end soon. Eduardo waved her away. Just a few more moments. He turned back. Promise me you'll always face me. Honest and unafraid. Leo smiled. We promise. Isla added. We choose love. They sat by his bedside, sharing memories and laughter. For the first time in years, the three generations felt whole. Outside the window, sunlight broke through clouds, illuminating the room. As they departed, Eduardo rested back against his pillows. He whispered, face to face at last. In that moment, Leo realized that reconciliation was more powerful than victory. As they left, each step echoed with promise of a new beginning, a family reborn in love and truth. Leo walked into the modest dining room, carrying a tray of soup bowls. The apartment's warm yellow lights contrasted with the cold drizzle outside. Eduardo sat at the head of the table, face drawn but eyes bright with testiness. Isla placed a freshly baked loaf beside him. Silence hung. Eduardo raised a hand. "Leo," he said, voice taut. "You chose her over me." He pointed at Isla. "You picked your wife instead of your father." Leo placed the tray down gently. "Father," he began, voice steady, "I chose the truth, the love I vowed to protect." Eduardo's jaw clenched. "Don't twist words. You abandoned me after all we've built." His eyes burned with betrayal. "You left my side to defend her honor." Isla stood. "Sir, please." Her tone was firm yet respectful. "Leo didn't abandon you. He followed his heart while honoring yours." She held Eduardo's gaze. "He stood by you when you needed family." Eduardo's shoulders trembled. "I was broken." He paused, glancing at Leo. "I felt powerless when you left." Leo moved to stand beside him. "I never stopped loving you. I fought for justice because love demands honesty." He looked at Isla. "She taught me that." Tears glistened on Eduardo's cheeks. "I was proud of you once," his voice broke. "But pride made me cruel." Leo took his father's hand. Pride also admitted wrongdoing. He turned to Eduardo. "You taught me ambition, but Isla taught me compassion." Isla added softly, "We are stronger together." She reached to cradle Eduardo's hand. "We choose family." Eduardo's breath caught. He closed his eyes as voices echoed in the quiet room. That night, as the rain tapped the window panes, they sat close, forging a new bond. In forgiveness, they discovered that choosing love could heal even the darkest, deepest, shared wounds. Isla stood at the threshold of Eduardo's study in the Castillo mansion's guest wing, where the scent of old leather and polished mahogany lingered. Leo paused behind her, concern etched across his face. Eduardo sat behind the desk, pen in hand, studying an old photograph of Veronica. She took a steady breath. "Sir," she began, voice measured, "I want you to know something important." Eduardo looked up, eyes weary. "Go on," he said, setting the photo aside. Isla squared her shoulders. "You said I was scandal. You said I would bring shame." She held out the photograph. "Yet here is your wife, my mother, standing beside you in that exact room, years before any scandal. See her smile." Eduardo's gaze flickered. "That was another time." Isla stepped closer. "She believed in you, gave you love you couldn't return, and when she faltered, you silenced her voice. But despite her pain, she fought for you. She loved you when you couldn't love yourself." He withdrew the photo, holding it to his heart. "She was my anchor." Isla's eyes glistened. "Then remember her compassion." She placed a gentle hand on his arm. "She loved me too. She protected me. She taught me strength." Eduardo swallowed. "I betrayed her trust and yours." She nodded. "But redemption is possible." She turned, extending her hand. "Will you join us as family again?" He rose with effort, tears in his eyes. I accept." Leo stepped forward, wrapping an arm around them both. "She loved me when you didn't." He smiled gently. In that moment, three hearts found unity. From that day forward, Eduardo walked beside Leo and Isla into moments of shared laughter and quiet respect. Their bond, forged through trials, would honor Veronica's legacy and prove that love could mend hearts torn by pride and fear. Warm candlelight flickered across the dining room where Eduardo, Leo, and Isla sat around the simple round table. The meal was humble: roasted chicken, steamed vegetables, and garlic bread, Isla's favorite. Eduardo carved the chicken with deliberate care, his movements unhurried. Isla poured wine into 3 glasses. "To family," she said softly. The clink of crystal resonated. Eduardo offered a tentative smile. "Thank you for cooking." He lifted his glass. "To honesty." Leo nodded, raising his glass. "To forgiveness." They sipped. Silence settled, comfortable this time. Eduardo cleared his throat. "I want to share a story." Isla leaned in. Leo shifted his chair closer. Eduardo folded his hands. Your mother insisted on making this very dish the day I closed our first big deal. She believed celebration should follow every success. He chuckled. I was too busy basking in victory to notice the meal growing cold. Isla's eyes softened. She would have liked this. Eduardo's gaze flickered to Leo. I see now that celebrating love matters more than any deal. His voice cracked. I lost sight of that. Leo placed his hand over his father's. We learned together. Eduardo dabbed his mouth with a napkin. I want to be part of your future. Not just as a father or grandfather, but as a friend. He set down his fork. May I have a seat at your table from now on? Isla and Leo exchanged joyful glances. Isla reached for his hand. Always. They continued their meal, sharing laughter and stories. Each bite was a promise, a silent vow that no obstacle could undo the ties they rebuilt. After dessert, they lingered around the table, voices soft and hearts light. The final meal was more than sustenance. It was a testament to renewed bonds of unity, gratitude, and love, nourishing their family's rebirth. A gentle breeze drifted through the open windows of the Castillo living room as Leo and Isla settled into the plump sofas opposite Eduardo's carved armchair. Sunlight danced across family portraits, including a new one of the three together by the community center oak. Eduardo inhaled deeply. There was a time I would have said, "No son of mine." He paused, drawing in the quiet. I would have barred the door on love like ours. He looked at Leo. But you shattered that barrier. Leo exchanged a glance with Isla. Father, love found us. He placed a hand on his chest. I never felt more myself. Eduardo's voice softened. I see now that fatherhood is an inheritance. He leaned forward. It's choosing to stand by your children when they need you most. Isla smiled. And choosing to honor the past while building the future. Eduardo reached for her hand. You showed me strength beyond my teaching. He turned to Leo. You showed me love beyond my vision. He cleared his throat, emotion catching in his words. So I say now, no son of mine would have stood by and let this family rot. But you did better than me. Leo and Isla rose and crossed to him. They knelt beside his chair, enveloping him in an embrace that spanned generations. Their hearts beat in unison as the afternoon light deepened. Cicadas hummed outside, echoing new beginnings. The family portrait on the wall seemed to glow. In that sanctuary of forgiveness, Eduardo closed his eyes. We are whole now. Their journey, bruised by conflict, ended here, on words of acceptance that would echo forever. Together they rose, forging tomorrow, healed by truth. Love, once tested, now stood unbreakable. And in the quiet echo of those words, the legacy found its truest form, unity. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please like, comment, and share. Also turn on the bell to get more of our videos. See you in the next story.